You can be the best healer imaginable for your D&D party, but it kind of depends on your party makeup, because I sorted out the 3 best healers you could possibly be in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And if you're just thinking, well, just be the Life Cleric, they're the best, right? Yeah, you're wrong. There's way better healers than the Life Cleric. Because while there isn't anything necessarily wrong with the Life Cleric, they do get heavy armor proficiency, making them pretty tanky, and they can use their channel divinity for preserve life, so they can heal an amount of hit points equal to 5 times your cleric level. But your channel divinity is very limited. You can only use it a couple times. And then the only other major benefit you get from being a Life Cleric is at a very high level. So that's not quite as impactful for most games, because most games don't last to 17th level when you would get that feature, which would just automatically allow you to heal the maximum amount a spell can allow. But there are way better builds out there. So let's dive into them. So out of the 3 best healers you could possibly build in 5th edition, let's start with the most straightforward one. And that's going to be the focused healer. And this is the absolute perfect healer if you have that very traditional party makeup with a frontline tank. And if you want to know the best tank, you can check out my other best tank build. But you also have the very typical 1 to 2 damage dealers, maybe one's on the front line, one's on the ranged, and then you have a healer. And what's great about this overall party makeup is that you focus on just one tank and then maybe somebody else that's in melee. And the biggest downfall of this party makeup is that there's one person taking all of that damage, and that's a lot of damage for one character to soak up. So focusing so much on that, you're going to have to heal a lot, and you only have so many spell slots in D&D. But this build fixes that problem, because you're going to go with a Divine Soul Sorcerer. The Divine Soul Sorcerer does get some abilities from their subclass, but the most important one is that they get access to the entire Cleric spell list. But other than that, they don't get that many benefits for healing. They can re-roll some dice when they heal, but usually re-rolling doesn't help as much as you would hope. Otherwise, they have some self-healing, and then they can grow some angelic wings and fly around. But what makes them so good in this party makeup is that they have what every sorcerer has: sorcery points and meta magic. Because like I said, you're going to be healing a lot, so running out of spell slots is a real risk here. But thanks to sorcery points, you can trade sorcery points for more spell slots, meaning that you can do more spell casting than almost any other class, because you have a much larger pool of spell slots to use. So if you're in a situation where somebody's in big danger and you're pretty much out of spell slots, you can use your bonus action to change some sorcery points into more spell slots, and then use your action to immediately heal them. It only costs you 2 sorcery points for a first level spell slot, and then you can spend a little more sorcery points if you need a higher level spell slot. And if you're in a dire situation where you need to use your action to deal some damage to hopefully take out an enemy, but you also are in a very risky situation and need to heal an ally, you can do that using your meta magic options to do something like a quicken spell. So then you can heal as a bonus action and still shoot out a firebolt if you need to. And in the situation where you have 2 frontline characters, but you only have 1 target to be able to cast with a healing spell, you should also grab Twin Spell. Then you can heal 2 characters at the same time. The last meta magic option I would probably grab is Extended Spell, because there's definitely plenty of buffs that you can get, especially in the cleric spell list, with Shield of Faith or Death Ward or whatever, and you can double the duration of that spell with just spending a few sorcery points on Extended Spell. One quick tip for if you're going to go with a Divine Soul Sorcerer, I highly recommend trying to get your hands on the Find Familiar spell. Whether you're grabbing the feat Magic Initiate or finding some other magical means of getting that spell in the first place, it's super helpful, because anything that has the range of touch when it comes to a spell, you can then cast it through your familiar as if you were casting it yourself. So you can get an owl as a familiar, which has the feature Flyby, allowing them to swoop down and swoop out of combat without provoking any opportunity attacks, and they can swoop down, heal a couple people with Twin Spell, and then swoop right back out of combat. Then the next build is what I affectionately refer to as the Lazy Healer. This is for pretty much any kind of party makeup, but mostly if you have people pretty well gathered around you, and definitely not if you're in a very hardcore campaign. This is much more about continuously regenerating some shielding hit points, because the Lazy Healer is definitely the Twilight Cleric. They prevent the party from taking too much damage because even as the healer, you have proficiency with heavy armor, so you are much more tanky. You make sure that people are less likely to be taken by surprise with the feature Eyes of Night, so you can grant dark vision to anybody that might not have it. You can make sure you have a little bit of a heads up in upcoming battles with Vigilant Blessing, so a person in your party can have advantage on their next initiative roll. But what makes them so perfect as a lazy healer is their channel divinity option, Twilight Sanctuary. So you don't even have to do anything anymore. The second you get in combat, activate your channel divinity. At 6th level, you'll be able to do this twice per short or long rest, but this specific subclass's channel divinity allows you to activate an aura around you for 30 feet, and it lasts 1 minute. And you don't even have to do anything from then on. You don't have to concentrate it, you don't have to do anything. As soon as a friendly creature ends its turn within that aura, it immediately gains temporary hit points equal to 1d6 plus your cleric level. So if you're just sticking with cleric, that means a 1d6 plus 10 or 15 or even 20 points of health, just as a shield that's constantly regenerating without you doing a thing for an entire minute. You can also make it so these creatures are immune to being charmed or frightened, but the health shield is probably going to be a bit more useful. But at high levels, which I'm not factoring in as much, but it's still really worth noting, that Twilight Sanctuary ability that you can use with your channel divinity gets boosted up even further. So anybody in that zone of 30 feet around you immediately gets half cover, meaning they're all getting a +2 to their armor class, as if they essentially have a shield of faith on all of them. But you can also add Shield of Faith on top of that if you really want to. And that +2 bonus doesn't just add to your armor class, it also adds to your dexterity saving throws. Half cover is super powerful, and waiting until high level to be able to grant that bonus probably makes sense for balance reasons. But many D&D campaigns have an average party size of 4 to 6. That means at max level, with an average party size of 5 people, you're going to be granting temporary hit point shields of 1d6 plus 20 for a total amount of healing of 100 plus 5d6 every single turn. So between that and granting half cover at high levels, that is super powerful, and you literally don't have to do anything to add to that healing if you don't want to, making you the perfect lazy healer. The only big downside to this build is that temporary hit points don't bring somebody back from 0, which isn't the case in Baldur's Gate 3, but in most D&D gameplay it is. But that's okay, because one of the other spells that's default granted to you with this subclass is Aura of Life. So it creates a similar 30-foot radius aura around you, and anybody within those 30 feet around you automatically has resistance to necrotic damage, their hit point maximum can't be reduced, and at the start of a creature's turn, if they had 0 hit points, they're automatically brought up to 1 hit point. And then that Twilight Sanctuary ability actually kicks in at the end of a player's turn. So that means if they went down and this aura is active, then all of a sudden they can get brought up to 1 hit point, and then at the end of their turn, they suddenly get a shield of a bunch of temporary hit points on top of it, meaning you still don't have to do anything, and you can just keep casting or fighting or doing whatever you want to do. In fact, this healer doesn't actually have to focus as much on their spell casting. They get access to martial weapons, so they can focus more on melee combat. Between that and their heavy armor proficiency, they're pretty good at it, and be kind of just default healing in the background. Overall, it's a very powerful build and the perfect lazy healer. Then the last build I really want to cover is if you are in a very serious campaign, like the kind where you're constantly worried that the entire party is going to get a TPK situation. And you might remember this build from my evil healer video, but it's going to be a druid. If you get the right druid subclass, it's one of the best healers you could imagine, because I'm talking about the subclass Circle of the Shepherd. While this subclass does focus very heavily on summoning abilities, it is insanely good at healing. And this is all about those situations where you're going up against a massive, insanely strong, insanely scary enemy, where you see your allies going down left and right, and you just need to make sure everybody gets healed massively. Because the very first ability they get right at 2nd level, which is very early to start being so good, is the Shepherd Druid ability, Spirit Totem. When you activate a Spirit Totem, you summon the spirit spirit of a particular animal to help out your allies. You can use this only once per short or long rest, but it's so good it doesn't even matter. You choose one of 3 animal spirits to incarnate this aura with, and the first one is the bear spirit. Once it comes into activation in the first place, it does grant some temporary hit points right off the bat, giving 5 plus your overall druid level, but that only happens once. It mostly helps with strength checks and strength saving throws, giving you advantage on them. Otherwise, you can activate the hawk spirit, which allows you to use your reaction to grant advantage on an attack roll if you want to, or it grants everybody in that aura advantage on perception checks. But the most powerful for especially a healer is the unicorn spirit. It grants advantage for anybody trying to detect a creature within it in case there's people being stealthed, but more importantly, when you cast a spell using a spell slot to regain some hit points for you, for anybody inside or outside of that aura, everybody inside that aura of your choice regains hit points equal to your druid level, meaning that you can just cast a first level healing spell. And no matter where you're casting it, as long as that aura is active, everybody of your choice within that aura is going to get healed for your druid level. And if we're estimating that you have 5 people in your party, that is just 100 hit points of straight up healing, not limited to any sort of temporary healing and not limited by any number of people other than what you can fit in that 30-foot radius sphere. So if you have people just constantly going down over and over again, this aura is going to save your entire party. And one thing that makes druids even better is that now they have the optional ability to swap out their wild shape for the ability to summon a familiar. So that same thing that we were using for our more focused healer, you can use here as well. So if you want to stay out of the battle, keep at range, you can go ahead and send in an owl that you summon to use its flyby ability to avoid opportunity attacks, swooping down, healing the most important person with a touch healing spell, and then flying right back out, all while healing everybody that you want within that aura. And this overall healing is going to be even more impactful because this particular druid subclass does very heavily focus on summoned creatures. So if you use conjure woodland beings or summon animal or summon beast or whatever, if it's also in that aura, it's also going to gain those benefits. Those summoned creatures get boosted up even further. At 6th level, you get the feature Mighty Summoner, granting any summoned creature an extra 2 hit points per amount of hit dice that it has, and by default its natural damaging abilities now count as magical, so that way they can overcome some resistances. At 10th level, they're automatically going to regain hit points in that aura that you create, no matter what the aura type is, thanks to the 10th level feature, Guardian Spirit. Because thanks to this feature, any summoned creature of yours that ends its turn within that aura that you create automatically regains hit points equal to your druid level. And the last feature you get from this subclass is called Faithful Summons. So if you happen to get knocked down to 0 hit points and get knocked unconscious, you automatically use the spell Conjure Animals. And not just that, it's automatically cast as if it were a 9th level spell, summoning 4 beasts of your choice that are challenge rating 2 or lower. They summon into existence and protect you in your downed state, which, trust me, is very helpful. I've been in campaigns where I got knocked down and the creature had multi-attack, and then I immediately just got permadead. So having some creatures suddenly be summoned into existence and help protect you right when you're at your most vulnerable is super, super helpful to make sure that your whole party doesn't get TPK'd. I've now covered the best tank in 5th edition, the best archers in 5th edition, and I wanted to make sure I covered some healers. If there's anything you do differently or any overall healing build I missed, let me know in the comments down below. If you want an absolutely optimized version of each one of these builds, I'll have them up on my Patreon, including D&D Beyond links and PDFs for the character sheets. If you want access to all of that, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below, just like all of these incredible people that are scrolling on by. Or the especially awesome player character patrons, Crembro, Natron209, Johnny Dyer, Kevin Shirley, Zephyros, That Funny Man 57, Joshua Maynard, CGC 2014, Afstorm, Lisa Martinez, Panda Milkshake, Ted Z, Andrew Nobles, Carcat Kitsune, Decker Joint, Z13, Viral Naravar, Daniel Galvin, and the Dino 21. Then there's the Dungeon Master level patrons I play D&D with, Shane Gilroy, Daniel Saffler, Conman ZX, Cyberciety, Salvador, Devin Happy, and Kilo Kilo. Then going above and beyond anything I ever expected is my God tier level patron, GameStake. He contributes an incredible amount that really helps support this channel, so a very special thank you to him. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here helping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially since people have been letting me know that once they subscribe to my channel, they happen to roll more nat 20s. But especially if you just want to be the best healer possible for your party and your campaign, because having a good healer just makes the adventuring that much more fun.